When I look at the future and say, how do we drive improvements, quantum would be one of the tools in our arsenal by which we can keep something like Moore's law continuing to evolve. So the potential is huge, and we'll have challenges.
We often hear about quantum supremacy, but we rarely talk about the human cost of reaching it. Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, has spent years pushing Google to build a brain better than our own. But as the latest tests shattered every limit of physics, the excitement turned into a profound sense of duty and dread. Sure, the machine worked perfectly, but as it was shut down, one question remained. Is humanity actually ready for the secrets this computer just revealed? The man at the center of the decision, Sundar Pichai, is usually seen as the calm, steady face of one of the largest companies on Earth. He is an engineer by training, a person who values data and logic above everything else. Most people know him for announcing new phones or search updates, but his most important work happens away from the cameras in a specialized lab in Santa Barbara. Inside this facility, Google's quantum AI team works on a project that Sundar has described as more significant than the invention of fire. And this is not even corporate hype. It just points to the massive responsibility that comes with leading a project that could fundamentally change human history. Google's culture is built on being open and sharing breakthroughs with the world. But quantum computing creates a different kind of pressure. For the people at the center of this work, the goal has always been to solve the hardest problems in the universe. However, as the machine began to hit its milestones, the mood in the room started to change. You must understand that this is not a story about a villain or a secret plot to take over the world, but about the emotional weight of being the first person to see a technology reach its full, uncontrollable potential. When you are the CEO of a company building a machine that can bypass the world's strongest security, you aren't just a businessman anymore. You've become a gatekeeper. Sundar has repeatedly spoken about the need for bold and responsible tech, but those words take on a heavy meaning when the breakthrough actually happens. Suddenly, he realizes that a threshold has been crossed. Kind of like the feeling of looking at a screen and knowing that the world will never be the same because of something you helped build. The decision to pause or restrict access to this data isn't about some sort of technical failure, but about a person realizing that humanity might not be ready for the answers the machine is providing. This is the burden of leadership and the stress that comes from knowing you have unlocked a power that cannot be taken back. But to truly understand why this moment felt so heavy, we have to look at the actual science that makes these machines so different from anything we have ever seen before. Why quantum computers are not just faster computers. To understand why the world's top engineers are so cautious, we have to look at what is actually happening inside the gold tubes of a quantum machine. It is a common mistake to think of a quantum computer as just a super fast version of the laptop you use at home. If your laptop is a bicycle, people often assume a quantum computer is a jet engine, but that isn't quite right. A better way to think about it is that your laptop follows the rules of a map, while a quantum computer follows the rules of a ghost. A normal computer works with bits. A bit is a tiny switch that can only be in one of two positions, on or off. In the world of math, we call these 1 and 0. Every photo you see, video you watch, and every text you send is just a massive pile of these ones and zeros. It is simple, reliable, and has powered the world for 70 years. But quantum computers use qubits. A qubit is different because it uses a rule called superposition. Instead of being forced to choose between being a 1 or a 0, a qubit can exist as both at the exact same time. Think of a coin on a table. A classical bit is like a coin that is either heads or tails. But a qubit is like a coin that is spinning so fast you can't tell which side is up. While it's spinning, it is technically both. This allows the computer to hold a staggering amount of information at once. If you have 2 bits, you can represent one of 4 possible patterns. But if you have 2 qubits, you are representing all 4 of those patterns simultaneously. As you add more qubits, the power doesn't just double. Basically, it explodes, and by the time you get to just 300 qubits, you have more paths to explore than there are atoms in the entire visible universe. There is also something called entanglement. This is a rule that says 2 qubits can become linked. If you change one, the other changes instantly, even if they are on opposite sides of the room. It is as if the computer has a built-in instant messaging system between its parts. This allows all the qubits to work together as one giant, unified brain instead of millions of separate tiny switches. However, there is one truth that often gets lost in the hype. Quantum computers are actually bad at most things. They are very narrow. For instance, if you tried to check your email or play a video game on a quantum computer, it would be much slower than your phone. They are only extreme when it comes to specific, massive puzzles like simulating how a new medicine works or finding a needle in a digital haystack. But in certain areas, the gap between these quantum computers and our best technology is huge. In late 2024, Google's Willow chip took on a specific test called random circuit sampling. It's a task designed to be so complex that no ordinary computer can find a shortcut. But Willow finished the job in under 5 minutes. To get that same answer, today's fastest supercomputer would have to run for 10 septillion years, a number so big it's basically forever. And all this makes us realize just how risky these computers are. They don't necessarily need to be better at everything, just the one specific type of math that protects our world's most important secrets. And soon, we will see how Google turned these spinning coins into a real machine, and the moment they realized they had built something they could no longer fully predict. Google's quantum journey. When you look at the timeline of Google's quantum AI team, you don't see a series of lucky accidents. Instead, you see a 15-year obsession with a very specific type of hardware called superconducting qubits. While other tech giants were playing with different methods, Google placed a massive bet on a design that requires the chip to be kept at a temperature colder than the vacuum of space. They were doing more than just building a faster computer. They managed to build a new kind of physics laboratory on a piece of silicon. The first real explosion of interest happened in late 2019. This was the year Google introduced the world to Sycamore, a 53-qubit processor that looked like a tangled, golden chandelier. With Sycamore, Google published a paper in Nature claiming they had achieved quantum supremacy. They ran a specialized math test called random circuit sampling. The machine finished it in 200 seconds. At the time, Google estimated that the world's most powerful supercomputer would need 10,000 years to do the same thing. This announcement won them awards, but also started a global firestorm. IBM, their biggest rival, stepped in almost immediately to dispute the claim. They argued that if you optimized a classical supercomputer differently, you could actually solve the problem in about 2 days, not 10 millennia. Of course, this caused a massive debate in the scientific community. But Sundar and his team didn't back down. To them, the debate over whether the gap was 10,000 years or 2 days missed the bigger picture. They compared the Sycamore experiment to the Wright brothers' first flight in 1903. That wooden glider only stayed in the air for 12 seconds and didn't carry any passengers, but it proved the physics of flight were real. Google viewed Sycamore the same way. It wasn't about the specific task being useful yet, but about proving that a quantum machine could finally take off. They kept going because they knew that once the door to this advantage was cracked open, it was only a matter of time before they could push it wide. Since 2019, the momentum has only accelerated. They moved past the Sycamore era and into the development of a much more advanced chip called Willow, which was unveiled in late 2024. Willow is not only more powerful, but also fundamentally smarter. During its benchmark tests, it solved a problem in under 5 minutes that would take today's fastest supercomputers 10 septillion years, a number so large it dwarfs the age of the entire universe. Google is moving toward a goal of a useful, error-corrected quantum computer by 2029. But as they hit these milestones, they started to realize that speed was no longer the most interesting thing about the machine. The real story was becoming much more unpredictable. The moment error correction changed everything scientists have known for decades, that quantum computers are fundamentally leaky. Unlike the bits in your phone, which are robust and stable, qubits are so sensitive that a single stray photon or a tiny change in temperature can ruin a calculation. This is why error correction is the most important hidden battle in tech. For years, it was the ultimate bottleneck. The more qubits you added to a machine to make it more powerful, the more instability you created. It was like trying to pass a message through a long line of people where every new person added to the chain is more likely to forget the word they just heard. Eventually, the errors pile up so quickly that the original message is lost before it even reaches the end. In 2023, Google's quantum AI team published a landmark result in the journal Nature that changed this narrative forever. They demonstrated a logical qubit, which is a single unit of information made by grouping many physical qubits together. They tested 2 sizes, a smaller one made of 17 qubits and a larger one made of 49. In a world first, they proved that the larger group actually had a lower error rate than the smaller one. To grasp why this is a holy grail moment, You have to realize that for 30 years, the opposite was true. Adding more parts always made things worse. Google proved that if your components are high quality enough, a state called being below threshold, the magic of error correction finally kicks in. By 2024 and into early 2025, they pushed this even further with their Willow processor. They showed that these logical qubits could actually live longer than the physical parts used to build them. It's the digital equivalent of a bridge being stronger than the individual bricks it's made of. This is the new information that has the scientific community buzzing. We have officially moved into the era of exponential error suppression. In their latest tests, Google found that as they increased the size of the qubit array, the error rate didn't just go down but was cut in half over and over again. They even implemented a real-time decoder, a piece of software developed with help from Google DeepMind that can spot and fix quantum glitches as they happen, in millionths of a second. This is why many researchers have stopped asking if a useful quantum computer can be built and are now asking when. One of Google's top scientists, Hartmut Neven, has noted that we have reached the break-even point. In the world of physics, this is the point where theory becomes inevitability. We are no longer waiting for a new discovery or a miracle of science. We are now in an engineering race. The movement from interesting to unstoppable is what creates the tension at the heart of this issue. If the machine is now stable enough to keep itself running, it means it can finally handle the massive, world-changing algorithms that were once just math on a chalkboard. It means the quantum clock has officially started ticking. But as the machine became more reliable, it began to produce results that were so complex, they created a problem that no one, not even Sundar Pichai, was truly ready for. The problem no one was ready for. As these machines finally stabilize, they began to do exactly what they were designed for. They started peering into the subatomic world. This is where the story moves from a race for speed to a much deeper, more unsettling challenge. Google's quantum processors, like Willow, began simulating things that have been invisible to us since the beginning of time. They started revealing the complex dance of molecular behaviors, the specific ways energy states change within a battery, and the impossible optimization paths needed to fix a broken global supply chain. To be clear, this wasn't magic. The machine only started doing what it was created to do, and that is, speak the native language of the universe. While our regular computers try to describe the world using ones and zeros, a quantum computer actually lives in the same quantum reality as an atom. This allowed it to find solutions to chemical and mathematical problems that have stumped humans for a century. But this success created a brand new problem, and it is one that has led to deep debates inside Google's leadership. It is called the verification gap. For the entire history of human tools, we have always been able to check the work of our machines. When a calculator tells you that 2 plus 2 is 4, you can verify it with your fingers. When a supercomputer predicts the weather, we can look outside and see if it's raining. But we have now entered the post-classical era. We are using quantum computers to solve problems that are so massive and so complex that there is no other way to check the answer. When Google's 2024 benchmarks showed a calculation that would take a supercomputer 10 septillion years, they were pointing at a terrifying reality. If that calculation is wrong, how would we ever know? We don't have 10 septillion years to double-check the math. Simply put, we have built a black box that is smarter than the sum total of all human knowledge. This is the root cause of our intellectual dread. Sundar and his team are now standing in front of a machine that can give us the ultimate answer. But we no longer have the answer key. Think about the stakes of this. If we use a quantum computer to design a new type of medicine, we are trusting its unverifiable math with human lives. If we ask it to manage the power grid of an entire continent, we are trusting its optimization paths without any way to simulate a backup. It is a moment of extreme vulnerability. For the first time in history, the gap between what we can compute and what we can understand is widening. The main fear isn't that the machine will turn evil. The fear is that the machine will be right. But we won't be able to understand why it's right. We are beginning to outsource the most important decisions on Earth to a process that happens in a frozen chamber deep inside a machine that operates on rules we can barely describe. This creates a paradox that keeps researchers up at night. We want the power of quantum computing to save us from climate change and disease, but to use that power, we have to give up our role as the final judge of truth. We have to trust the machine. And as any scientist will tell you, trust is not a word that usually belongs in a laboratory. The pause in popular movies, a shutdown usually involves a hero frantically pulling cables while sparks fly and alarms scream. But in a real-world multi-billion-dollar laboratory like Google's Quantum AI campus, the truth is much more professional and, in many ways, more unsettling. There was no dramatic plug pulling at Google and no secret meltdown that the company is trying to hide. To understand what people mean when they talk about a quantum shutdown, you have to look at how high-level science actually works. A shutdown in a lab like this is almost always a controlled pause. Because quantum computers like the Willow chip are the most sensitive machines ever built, they are not kept running 24/7 like a website server. They are operated in shots or specific windows of time. When the engineers shut down the system, they are often moving into a phase of governance review. This is a process Sundar has championed across all of Google's advanced projects. It means that when a machine reaches a new milestone, the team stops. They restrict access to the data and narrow the experiments to make sure the results are safe and accurate. We have seen Google do this before with their AI models. In early 2024, Google famously paused the image generation features of its Gemini AI because the results weren't meeting their safety and accuracy standards. They didn't do this because the AI woke up or became a monster. They did it because the technology was producing biased and unverified results that could mislead millions of people. In the quantum lab, these pauses are even more critical. If a quantum computer produces a result that could break global encryption or reveal a way to manipulate biological molecules, the responsible thing to do isn't to blast that news on social media. It is to pause, verify, and involve national security experts. This is what a shutdown really looks like. Just a room full of lawyers, ethicists, and government liaisons looking at a screen and deciding if the information is too dangerous to be made public yet. The encryption clock starts ticking meanwhile, while the internet focuses on whether quantum computers will become conscious. A much more grounded and urgent threat is already keeping government officials awake at night. This isn't a theoretical worry for the distant future, but a documented math problem that targets the very foundation of how we live today. This threat has a name: Shor's algorithm. To understand the importance of this, you have to realize that almost everything you do online, like sending an email, buying something with a credit card, or accessing your bank account, is protected by a lock. This lock is a mathematical problem that is easy for a computer to create but incredibly hard to solve. It involves taking a massive number and finding its prime factors. For a regular computer, even a supercomputer, cracking one of these locks would take trillions of years. It is the wall that keeps the digital world safe. But in 1994, a mathematician named Peter Shor proved that a sufficiently powerful quantum computer could breeze through this math in a matter of hours. By using the spinning coin trick of qubits, the machine doesn't have to try one key at a time. It can find the right key almost instantly. This is why governments care about Google's progress much more than tech influencers do. While the public looks for flashy demos, national security agencies are watching the Q-day clock. This refers to the day a quantum computer becomes powerful enough to break all current encryption. If that happens, every secret in the world, from your private messages to the launch codes for nuclear weapons, becomes compromised. The most shocking part of this is a strategy known as harvest now, decrypt later. Intelligence agencies and hackers around the world are currently stealing and storing massive amounts of encrypted data that they cannot read yet. They are just waiting. They know that in 5 or 10 years, a machine like Google's, Willow, or its successors will be able to unlock those files. The theft is happening today, but the damage will be felt tomorrow. This is not speculation. It has already triggered a massive change in how the world operates. The White House and the National Security Agency, NSA, have already issued directives for all government agencies to begin migrating to post-quantum cryptography. These are new types of locks that are designed to be quantum-proof. In 2024 and 2025, as Google's error correction became more stable, these briefings moved from low priority to urgent. This is the real-world clock that is ticking in the background. Every time Google announces a more stable logical qubit, the window for our current security gets smaller. The threat is ongoing. It is documented in government papers, and it is the reason why the progress in these frozen labs is being watched by generals just as closely as it is being watched by engineers. When AI and quantum begin feeding each other, the story of quantum computing is no longer just about physics. It has become a story about a loop, a cycle where the smartest software we have ever built is now designing the smartest hardware we have ever dreamed of. This is the moment where artificial intelligence and quantum computing begin to feed each other, and it is happening right now inside Google's research centers. For the last few years, Google has been using specialized AI models, like those from the DeepMind team, to solve the puzzle of the quantum chip itself. Designing a processor like Willow is a task too complex for a human brain. There are millions of ways to lay out the wires in qubits, but only a few will work without causing the system to overheat or fail. Google researchers have used AI to find the perfect map for these chips, optimizing the layouts in ways that human engineers never considered. In a way, the AI is building the cradle for the very machine that will eventually surpass it. But the loop goes both ways. Just as AI helps build quantum chips, quantum computers are being prepared to break the limits of how we train AI. Today, training a model like Gemini or ChatGPT takes months of time and an incredible amount of electricity. It requires thousands of classical chips working day and night to find patterns in data. We are reaching a ceiling where we simply cannot build enough power plants to keep making AI bigger. Quantum computing changes that math. Because a quantum computer is a master of optimization, it could potentially find the patterns in a dataset in a fraction of the time. It doesn't need to look at every piece of data one by one. It can just use quantum interference to cancel out wrong answers and highlight the right ones. This could move us from an era of large language models to quantum language models, where the training doesn't take months but minutes. This is where the escalation becomes unsettling, and it's why Sundar has called for caution alongside boldness. We are moving toward a world where the speed of progress is faster than our ability to understand it. This isn't about the machine becoming a superintelligence with a personality. It's about the loss of human intuition. In the past, when we built a new tool, we understood how it worked. We knew why a bridge stayed up or why a car moved forward. But when an AI uses a quantum computer to design an even better quantum computer, we lose the why. We are left with a machine that works perfectly, but we can no longer explain the steps it took to get there. This has led to a shared concern among the world's top researchers. They often point out that we are currently building the ladder while we are climbing it. If the cycle of AI and quantum progress begins to move at a pace that exceeds human oversight, we effectively become passengers in our own civilization. We get the benefits, but we lose the ability to steer the ship. This sense of progress faster than understanding is the real reason why the leaders of this field are starting to look at their own creations with a sense of profound anxiety, the question that has no undo button. As we stand at the edge of this new era, we have to face a question that has nothing to do with math and everything to do with wisdom. Just because we can compute something, does that mean we should? For the last century, our answer to progress has always been a loud yes. We believe that more data, more speed, and more answers would always make the world better. But quantum computing is different. It is the first technology that forces us to ask if there is such a thing as knowing too much, too fast. The tension today is between two very different ideas. On one side is the spirit of openness, the belief that science should be shared so everyone can benefit. On the other side is the need for restraint, the realization that some secrets are so powerful they could break the systems that keep our society stable. Who gets to decide when to slow down? Is it a CEO in a boardroom, a scientist in a lab, or a government official? Right now, there is no global handbook for this. We are making up the rules as the machine is running. It is important to remember that quantum computing is not evil. It is a tool, much like a hammer or a lens. It has the potential to solve the hunger crisis, to pull carbon out of the sky, and to cure diseases that have haunted us for centuries. But power, without the ability to verify, it is dangerous. If we reach a point where we trust a machine's answer simply because we aren't smart enough to argue with it, we have given up a vital part of what it means to be human. But the fact is, the quantum shutdown isn't a failure of technology, but a sign of human conscience. It is the moment where we choose to prioritize safety over speed. As Google and others continue to push the limits of what is possible, the challenge for all of us is to stay curious, but also stay cautious. We are opening a door that has no undo button. The world on the other side could be a paradise, or it could be a place where we lose our grip on the truth. The choice of which path we take won't be made by a qubit. It will be made by us, and we will leave you with these questions. If we've built a mind that gives answers we can no longer double-check, are we still the ones in control? Would you trust a machine's decision if nobody on Earth could explain how it got there? Leave your answers in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please click on the next one on your screen.